Never underestimate the power of a family dinner. Because it was during one of those that Edward Harrington decided to tell the truth about his will. And 3 hours later, he was dead on the living room floor. 6 people in the house, all with motives. But only one is guilty. And I was there. I saw everything. My name is Helena, and before you judge me, you need to understand one thing. I'm not the villain of this story. At least, not the only one. The Harrington mansion had always been known for hosting elegant dinners. But that Friday, March 14th, nobody was interested in food. Edward Harrington, the 72-year-old patriarch, had summoned the entire family after 5 years of silence and fights. The invitation simply said, "We need to talk about the future." And we all knew what that meant. Inheritance, money, power. Everything was at stake that night, and I, as his second wife, had as much to lose as anyone. At 7 in the evening, 6 people crossed through the mansion's door, each one carrying their own expectations, their own secrets, and I watched them all enter one by one, knowing that night would change everything. First came Daniel, Edward's oldest son. 45 years old, successful lawyer. At least that's what he wanted everyone to think. The truth? His firm was drowning in debt. He needed that money, desperately needed it. I knew this because Edward told me everything. He liked to share his children's failures with me, as if it made him feel superior. Then came Sarah, the middle daughter. 38 years old, divorced for 2 years, fighting for custody of her children. She had been her father's favorite for a long time, but in recent years, something had changed. Edward started treating her coldly, and she had no idea why. But I knew. I always knew. Marcus was the third to arrive. The youngest son, 32 years old, frustrated artist who never got his father's approval. He had asked to borrow money several times in recent months. Edward always refused, always with that look of disappointment that Marcus knew so well. I felt sorry for him. He was the only one in the family I really felt sorry for. Then came me, Helena. 20 years younger than Edward, married for only 3 years. Everyone in the family hated me. They thought I was only there for the money. And look, they weren't completely wrong, but they weren't completely right either. It's complicated. Robert, Edward's younger brother, showed up right after. He had been Edward's business partner for decades, until an ugly fight separated them 5 years ago. Nobody knew exactly what had happened between them. But Robert never forgave. And whenever he looked at Edward, I saw something dangerous in his eyes. And lastly, Claire arrived, the housekeeper. 62 years old, working for the Harrington family for 40 years. She knew all the secrets of that house, absolutely all of them. And she looked at me with a contempt I never fully understood. Until that night. Dinner started at 8 o'clock sharp. I had helped Claire decorate the table, white flowers and candles, but the tension in the air was impossible to ignore. Everyone ate in silence, waiting for the moment when Edward would finally speak. I was sitting next to him, my heart beating fast, because I had no idea what he was going to say, and that terrified me. At 9:15 in the evening, Edward stood up. He tapped his fork against his wine glass, asking for attention. Everyone stopped eating. I held my breath. "Thank you for coming," he began. His voice was steady, but there was something strange in it, something final. "I called you here because I need to tell you something important, something that will change everything." I looked at him, trying to understand what was happening. He hadn't told me anything about this. Daniel leaned forward. Sarah held her breath. Marcus stopped fidgeting with his phone. Robert became completely still. "I went to the doctor last week," Edward continued. "The tests came back, and they're not good news." My heart stopped. I put my hand on his arm, but he gently pushed me away. "I have, at most, 6 months to live." Sarah covered her mouth with her hands. Daniel closed his eyes. Marcus dropped his napkin on the floor. I couldn't move. I didn't know. He hadn't told me. His own husband hadn't told me. "But that's not why I called you here," Edward said, and now there was a different tone in his voice, harder, colder. "I called you because I need to tell the truth about my will." It was at that moment that everything changed, and I realized that I, just like everyone else, was just a piece in his game. I've spent the last few months reviewing my life, reviewing my choices, and I realized I made many mistakes. I was unfair to some of you. I favored others without reason, so I decided to do things differently. He took an envelope from the inner pocket of his jacket, a thick envelope sealed with red wax. I had never seen it before. "This is my new will. It was registered yesterday, and in it, I leave everything, all the fortune, all the properties, all the businesses, to just one person." I felt all eyes turning to me, as if I were the villain, as if I had planned all of this. "But I won't say who it is. Not yet. That person will find out when I die, along with all of you." Daniel slammed his hand on the table. "This is ridiculous. You can't do this." "I can, and I did," Edward replied calmly. "And there's more. For those who weren't chosen, I have a special message. A message that explains exactly why each of you lost the right to my inheritance." Sarah stood up. "Father, what are you saying?" "I'm saying that all of you are hiding something from me. And I found out. I found out everything." Marcus turned pale. I crossed my arms, trying to protect myself from the accusing looks. Robert gave a bitter laugh. "You think I'm old and stupid," Edward said. "But I know exactly who each of you is, and what you did." "This is absurd," I said for the first time. My voice came out louder than I intended. "You're sick. You're not thinking straight." "I'm thinking perfectly well, Helena," Edward replied, looking directly into my eyes. And in that look, I saw something that scared me. He knew something about me. "And my decision is final." He put the envelope back in his pocket and stood up. "Dinner is over. Good night to all." And then he left the room, climbing the stairs to the second floor. We all stood there, in silence, processing what had just happened. I was in shock. Complete shock. It was 9:45 in the evening. I went to my room, locked the door, sat on the bed and tried to breathe, tried to understand what was happening. Edward was dying. He had a new will, and I had no idea if my name was in it or not. I stayed there for almost an hour, thinking, planning, trying to figure out what to do. But then, at 10:40, I made a decision. I needed to know, needed to see that will, needed to understand what Edward was planning. So I left the room, went downstairs to the first floor, got water in the kitchen. Yes, that part is true. And then went back up. But this time, I went to his office. The door was ajar. I pushed it slowly. And that's when I saw it. Edward was lying on the floor, face down. A glass of whiskey turned over beside him, the liquid running across the carpet. The window was open. I didn't scream. I should have screamed, but I couldn't. I stood there, paralyzed, looking at my husband's body. And then I saw the envelope. The will envelope. It was on his desk, open. I didn't think. I just acted. I grabbed the envelope and ran out, went back to my room and burned everything in the fireplace. Every page. Every word. I know what you're thinking, but I didn't kill him. I swear. When I went in there, he was already dead. At 11:30, Claire found Edward Harrington's body lying on the office floor. She screamed, and everything turned to chaos. The police arrived half an hour later. The detective in charge of the case was a man named Richard Moss. 53 years old, veteran, with an impressive record of solved cases. He looked around the crime scene, analyzing every detail. "Nobody leaves this house," Moss told the other officers. "Everyone is a suspect." And then the interrogation began. And I knew I was screwed. Daniel was first. He admitted he had financial problems. admitted he had fought with his father several times in recent months. "But I didn't kill him," he insisted. "I would never do that." Moss asked where he was between 9:45 and 11:30. Daniel said he was in the library on the first floor, reading, alone. Nobody could confirm. Sarah was second. She was visibly shaken, trembling, crying. "My father was everything to me," she said. "Even when we fought, I still loved him. I would never—" But Moss discovered something interesting. Sarah had been seen going upstairs at 10:15. She said she went to the bathroom, but the second-floor bathroom was only 3 doors away from Edward's office. Marcus was third. He was nervous, fidgeting with his hands, looking everywhere. "I was in the garden," he said, "smoking. I smoke when I'm stressed, and that dinner made me very stressed." "Did anyone see you in the garden?" Moss asked. "No, I was alone." Then it was my turn. I was calm, or at least trying to appear calm. "I was in my room," I said. "I didn't want to talk to anyone after that ridiculous dinner. I went there and locked the door." "You locked the door?" Moss repeated. "Yes. And you didn't leave? Not even once?" I hesitated, just for a second, but it was enough. "No," I lied. But Claire, that damned housekeeper, said something different. She had seen me leaving the room at 10:40, said I was going down the stairs in a hurry with something in my hands. When Moss confronted me with this information, I turned pale. I just went to get water in the kitchen," I said. "I forgot to mention it." But I knew he didn't believe me, and I was right. Robert was the 5th interrogated. He didn't try to hide anything. "I hated my brother," he said, straight to the point. "He robbed me, stole my part of the company, kicked me out, and never apologized. So yes, I hated him. But I didn't kill him." "Where were you?" Moss asked. "In the living room, drinking, trying to forget that shit dinner." "Did anyone see you?" "Claire passed by me a couple of times." And Claire confirmed. Robert was in the living room, at least until 10:30. After that, she didn't see him anymore. And finally, Claire, the housekeeper, the woman who knew all the secrets. Moss interrogated her for over an hour, and I stayed there, watching, knowing she knew something important. "You've worked here for 40 years, Moss said to her. "You know this house better than anyone, know the secrets of this family. So tell me, who would do this?" Claire was silent for a long moment. Then she said, "All of them had motives, detective. All of them." "And you? Did you have motives?" Claire smiled, a sad smile. "Edward promised me something many years ago. Promised he would take care of me when I couldn't work anymore. But he never followed through. So yes, I had motives." Moss left everyone in the living room while he and his team investigated further. They found something interesting in the office, fingerprints on the whiskey glass. But they weren't Edward's. They were from someone else. They analyzed, compared with everyone in the house. The prints were Daniel's. When Moss confronted Daniel, he panicked. I was there earlier, before dinner. My father called me to talk. We had whiskey together. But I swear he was alive when I left." "What time was this?" "At 7:30, before everyone arrived." Moss didn't believe him. He was about to arrest Daniel when one of the officers brought new information. They had found something in my room. A bottle of poison. And it was at that moment that I knew I was completely screwed. I denied everything. "That's not mine. Someone put it there. Someone is trying to frame me." And I was telling the truth. I didn't know where that bottle had come from. I had never seen it in my life. But then Sarah spoke. "I saw you, Helena. Saw you entering my father's office at 10:40. I was in the hallway. You didn't see me, but I saw you." My face turned red. "That's a lie." "It's not a lie," Sarah insisted. "You went in there, stayed about 5 minutes, and left with something in your hands. Something that looked like an envelope." Everyone looked at me. Moss approached. You took the will. I couldn't lie anymore. There was no way. I didn't. You took the will because you knew you weren't in it, because Edward was going to leave you with nothing, so you poisoned him and took the will to destroy the evidence. I started crying. Real tears this time. No, it wasn't like that. I went in there, yes, but he was already dead. I swear, he was already on the floor. I panicked and took the envelope because I thought someone would blame me. Where is the envelope now? I burned it in my room's fireplace. Moss was about to arrest me, but then Claire spoke. Wait. Everyone looked at her. Helena is telling the truth. I looked at Claire, shocked. She was defending me? How do you know? Moss asked. Because I saw who killed Edward. The silence was absolute. My heart was beating so hard I thought I would faint. I was cleaning the second-floor hallway at 10:20. I saw someone entering the office, saw this person put something in Edward's whiskey, saw Edward drink it, saw him fall. Who? Moss asked. Who was it? Claire looked around the room. Her eyes stopped on one person, a person nobody expected. It was Sarah. Sarah stood up immediately. What? No, this is crazy. Claire, why are you lying? I'm not lying, Claire said calmly. You went in there at 10:20, put poison in his whiskey, and left. I saw everything. This doesn't make sense, Daniel shouted. Sarah loved our father. No, Claire said. She hated him, and with good reason. Moss looked at Sarah. Explain. Sarah was trembling. Tears ran down her face. I didn't. Sarah, Claire said gently, tell the truth. Tell about what Edward did to you. And then Sarah broke down. He destroyed my life, she said, her voice breaking. He destroyed my marriage. He paid my ex-husband to lie in court, to say I was a terrible mother, to say I beat my children, all lies, all of it. And why? Because I married someone he didn't approve of. Because I defied him. I put my hand over my mouth. I didn't know this. Edward had never told me. And when did you find this out? Moss asked. Last week. I found his emails, found the bank transfers. He ruined my life just because I didn't obey. So yes, I killed him. I put poison in his whiskey, and I don't regret it. But then something happened that nobody expected. Marcus stood up. No, it wasn't her. Everyone looked at him. It was me. Sarah looked at her brother, confused. Marcus, what are you? It was me who killed our father, Marcus said. His voice was firm now. There was no more nervousness. Sarah, you may have put poison in his whiskey, but I put it in first. At 10:10, before you went in there. Detective Moss was silent, processing. You put poison in his whiskey at 10:10, Moss repeated slowly. And Sarah put more poison at 10:20. Yes. But how did you know the whiskey was there? Because I knew my father. He always drank whiskey after dinner. Always. So I put the poison in his glass earlier and waited. Why? Sarah asked, still shocked. Why did you do this? Marcus looked at her. For the same reasons as you. He destroyed my life too. He never gave me a chance. Never believed in me. And I found out last week that he had sabotaged all my art exhibitions, paid critics to destroy my work, just because he wanted me to be a lawyer like Daniel. He ruined my career before it even started. Daniel put his hand on his head. This is crazy. This is absolutely... No, a voice said. A calm voice. A voice nobody expected to hear at that moment. It was Robert. It's not crazy, and you two didn't kill Edward. Everyone looked at him. I was completely lost. What was happening? Because it was me. Robert stood up, hands in his pockets, completely calm. You two are amateurs, he said, almost laughing. You put poison in his whiskey, but I put poison in his whiskey 3 days ago. In the bottle. The bottle he kept in his office. Every sip Edward took in the last 3 days was slowly killing him. What you did today just accelerated the process. My God, Moss whispered. Why? Daniel asked. Why did you do this? Because Edward didn't just steal my part of the company, Robert said. He stole my life, stole my wife. You don't know this, but 30 years ago, Edward had an affair with my wife. And when I found out, he laughed in my face. Said she was his, not mine. She committed suicide 2 years later, and Edward never, not once, apologized. The room was in absolute silence. I couldn't process all of this. So yes, Robert continued, I poisoned him, slowly, so he would suffer, so he would feel what I felt all these years. Moss signaled to the officers. They approached Robert, but then something happened. Claire started laughing. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was a sad laugh, a tired laugh. You're all idiots, she said. Everyone looked at her, including me. You all tried to kill Edward. You all failed, because I had already killed him before any of you had the chance. The silence was deafening. I felt my legs go weak. The poison in the bottle that Robert put? I switched it for water 3 days ago. I saw him doing it, saw everything. The poison Marcus put in the glass? It wasn't strong enough to kill a fly. I tested it later. The poison Sarah put? Also weak. Because none of you really know how to kill someone. But I do, Claire continued. I've worked in this house for 40 years. I know every secret, know every lie. And I knew all of you were going to try something tonight. So I acted first. How? Moss asked. And I wanted to know too. The dinner, Claire said simply. I poisoned Edward's food during dinner, a substance that takes about 2 hours to take effect. I calculated it perfectly. He was going to die at 11:30, and he did. Why? Sarah asked, her voice broken. Why did you do this? Claire looked at her, and for the first time, there were tears in her eyes. Because Edward Harrington wasn't just my employer, she said. He was my son's father. I felt as if the floor had disappeared from under my feet. Everyone was paralyzed. 40 years ago, when I started working here, I was 22 years old. Edward was 32. He was married. I was young and stupid. We had an affair. I got pregnant. He promised me he would take care of me. Promised he would recognize the child. But when the baby was born, he gave me money and told me to disappear. Said if I told anyone, he would destroy my life. Tears fell freely down Claire's face now. I raised my son alone. Edward never wanted to meet him, never gave anything except money. And when my son died 5 years ago, died in a car accident because he didn't have money to fix the brakes, Edward didn't show up at the funeral, didn't even call, nothing. So yes, Claire said, I killed him, and I would do it again. Moss signaled for the officers to arrest Claire. But as they took her away, she looked back one last time. The will, she said. The envelope Helena burned. It wasn't the real will. It was a fake. Edward showed me the real will 2 days ago. He left everything to charity. None of you were going to get anything. And then she left. I stood there, frozen, trying to process everything. 6 people had tried to kill Edward that night, but only 1 succeeded. And it was the person nobody suspected, the person who was there every day, the invisible person, the housekeeper. And me? I was interrogated 3 more times. Eventually, they released me. There wasn't enough evidence against me. After all, I hadn't killed anyone. I had only stolen and burned a fake will. The Harrington mansion was empty after that. Daniel, Sarah, and Marcus lost everything. Robert was arrested as an accomplice. Claire was convicted of murder. And me? I left there with nothing, exactly as Edward had planned. But you know what? I learned something that night. I learned that we are all capable of terrible things when we feel cornered. I learned that secrets have weight. And I learned that sometimes the people you least expect are the most dangerous. And you know what the saddest part of all this is? It wasn't the poison that killed Edward. It was years of stored-up resentments, of unspoken words, of forgiveness that never happened. That family had everything: money, power, opportunities, but they didn't have the only thing that really matters: honesty and true connection. Every person at that table carried a silent weight, a pain that was never shared. And Edward? He preferred to manipulate, control, and keep secrets until the last moment, instead of simply talking. I learned something important that night. Money doesn't buy peace, doesn't buy forgiveness, and it definitely doesn't buy time. So if you have something stuck in your throat, something you need to say to someone, whether it's an apology, a difficult truth, or simply an "I love you," say it. Don't wait for the perfect dinner, for the special occasion, for the right moment, because one day it might be too late. And unlike Edward and the Harrington family, you still have time to fix things before it becomes a story like this. Don't let pride, fear, or silence steal from you the chance to live in peace with the people who matter. Leave a comment below telling me what you thought of this story. Like the video if you stayed until the end, and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this.